Morning, 19th of March, Dan here. So you can see here I've got a straw raised bed and it's made up of straw bales. They're probably barley straw, and in here I've got all sorts of growing mediums, things that I could use to grow in, and potatoes are probably what I'm going to be growing in here. So I'm a gardener, and one of my main jobs, certainly during the spring, summer and the autumn, is cutting people's lawns. So I get lots of grass clippings, and last growing season I saved absolutely loads of grass clippings. So of course grass clippings on their own, they take a long time in order to turn into compost. So I kept them, and they're in the compost bin down there. And what I did was, about 3 weeks, a month or so ago, I filled up this bed here. So grass clippings went in there. I had a bit of horse manure that I had delivered last year. That went in there as well. What else did I put in there? I had a ton bag of leaf mould. I say leaf mould, wasn't quite made yet. It was about halfway there, maybe a bit less, but that went in there as well. Because of course, to make leaf mould quickly, you have to turn it regularly, keep it the right dampness, etc, etc. So what I do when I'm collecting my growing mediums for composting is I just keep them. So whether it's in a compost bin down here, whether at home, I keep them in bags, etc, or in tubs, whatever. I keep them until I could use them, either to quickly turn them into compost by using the methods in which to quicken it up, or whether I do it what I like to refer to as passively, just let them do what they want to do over time. Because of course, grass clippings on their own will turn into compost eventually, but you have to leave them. But anyway, had them all sitting about and I wanted to utilise them. So in here, composting is still currently occurring with absolutely no effort from myself, and potatoes will grow quite fine in there. So a bit of leaves, oak tree leaves they were, straw, grass clippings, manure, and you can really see just how nice, or I'm expecting this to be very nice indeed. So these straw bales, one problem that you can have is they put up little, shoots of barley, etc, etc, to do with the threshing process, if any seeds or whatever end up in there. So of course that could be a concern for some people if they don't want to get like little seeds coming up either in their bed, around their bed, etc. But I don't have a problem with it. And of course, if you're then going to put the straw bales in there, and if there's any seeds, you could end up with little seeds coming up. But once again, or seedlings, if that happens, I'm not particularly fussed. I just proceed to pull them out. Another issue, of course, you've got is I'm down an allotment here. I've got 203 square metres of space, 2,185 feet, something like that. So I'm not worried about the space it takes up. But of course, in a small garden, etc, this take out quite a bit of space, isn't it? But for me, no problem at all. And of course, over time, these bales here, they're a carbon source, and they will eventually turn into compost themselves. They can form part of compost, and it's compost. This is basically, to me, compost whilst I'm waiting, passive composting, very little effort in terms of labour in turning, in fact no effort now at all, and I'm also going to be getting a good crop of potatoes from this. So when I plant this out, I will let you know. And a nice idea. So another thing that's good about it is, because it's in a raised bed, it warms up quicker. These bales here help to hold the warmth in there, so could get things planted out maybe a little bit earlier. Maybe if I wanted to grow something like melons, this could be good. Of course, I'd want to have something over the top, probably some polythene or something like that for the additional microclimate. You could get your plants quicker if you grew them in something like this, as opposed to in the open ground. Let's say, for example, you're growing your plants, etc, in an area which the soil is heavy clay and late to dry out. I did a job yesterday somewhere for someone, and they've got very heavy clay soil there, and compare that to around here where we've got sort of like sandy-ish soil, well draining, or what you've seen in my own home garden, which is definitely sort of like sandy soil. Here, not quite so sandy, but very well draining. Even though it's not that far apart, the difference is vast. So if you're in like a area of heavy clay, slow to dry out soil because it holds on to the moisture longer, you could consider growing in a bed such as this and get things a little bit earlier. So anyway, there you go. That's my straw raised bed, and we'll have a little close up so you can see what the growing medium looks like. So yeah, as I put my hand in, really moist, absolutely beautiful it is. And look at that, look. Really can feel the moisture in there. Potatoes are going to do really well in here. Don't want to be letting potatoes dry out, particularly when they're swelling, when they're getting bigger towards the end. You want to make sure they've got plenty of moisture. And this really will do that. I mean, look at that little worm in there, look, absolutely wonderful. And yeah, there we are, that's the straw raised bed. And if you like the idea of straw raised beds, you know, let me know what your opinions on them are. So one issue you could run into if you're going to use a method like this is because many or much of the matter in here is not fully composted yet, it will sink, and by the end of the season it could be right down. So of course, if you're growing things in there that you want to sort of stay up here, then you could run into problems. But I'm going to be growing potatoes, as I stated, and they'll be very well suited to growing in here because main crop potatoes, indeterminate potatoes, you need to earth them up in order to stop them going green because they grow on more than one layer. Not so important with first or second early potatoes, determinate potatoes, because they only grow on one layer. But I earth mine up anyway, or mound mine up, just to standardise the whole thing really. But potatoes will do very well in here, and of course as it sinks I can then just put more matter on top, and in that way you're kind of just naturally earthing up how you would anyway. So a bed like this to me lends itself very well to the growing of potatoes. So you can see another straw bale raised bed behind me, and I grew giant pumpkins in this last year. One of them got to over 7 stone, 48 kilos, 98 pounds, something like that. So certainly were a fair size, but I've replaced a bale here. So this is a new bale. This bale here, the bale at the back, and that bale there, they're from last year. They're still holding their integrity, so they're holding the horse manure in the middle. I've also topped this up a little bit with a bit more horse manure to just raise the level up a little bit. But the bale that was here is now in that raised bed I showed you earlier, so that's continuing to compost in there. So I'll link that giant pumpkin video down below if you'd like to check it out. And yeah, what am I going to put in here? You'll have to wait and see. See you in the next video. Thanks for viewing.